You ever notice how some people seem to walk through life effortlessly, while for you, things always seem to fall apart right when they're finally coming together? You miss the train by seconds. You get rejected after giving everything. You meet the right person at the wrong time. And after a while, you start to wonder, am I just unlucky? But what if it's not luck at all? What if the worst things that keep happening to you aren't random, but patterns, repeating themselves until you finally wake up? Carl Jung had a haunting way of putting this. He said, "Until you make the unconscious conscious, it will direct your life, and you will call it fate." Think about that. The same unseen forces that shape your thoughts, your choices, your accidents, might be quietly steering your entire life. Maybe you're not cursed. Maybe you're being shown the parts of yourself you keep refusing to see. Because sometimes, what looks like bad luck is really your unconscious trying to get your attention. And every setback, every heartbreak, every loss, isn't the world turning against you. It's life mirroring what's still unresolved within you. So no, you're not unlucky. You're being shown the map of your own mind. And if that's true, if life really is showing you the map of your own mind, then every piece of bad luck begins to make sense. Look closer, and you'll notice it's rarely random. It's familiar. Different faces, same feeling. Different place, same story. You leave one relationship only to find the same dynamic wearing a different name. You change jobs, but the same exhaustion follows you. You try to reinvent yourself, but somehow, life keeps handing you the same script, just in new handwriting. And you start to wonder, am I doing something wrong? But psychology has an uncomfortable truth. You're not unlucky. You're predictable. The human brain is a pattern-making machine. It clings to what it knows, even if what it knows hurts. This is what modern neuroscience calls predictive processing. Your brain doesn't just react to life, it constantly predicts it. It builds models of how the world works based on your past. Then it filters every new experience through that model, seeing what fits, discarding what doesn't. So if you grew up around chaos, part of you learns to expect it. If love once meant walking on eggshells, part of you starts to seek that same tension. Not because you want pain, but because your nervous system confuses familiarity with safety. And here's the twist. Once your brain creates that inner blueprint, it keeps searching for matches. That's why patterns don't just appear. They echo beneath awareness until you interrupt them. It's not punishment, it's programming. The philosopher Friedrich Nietzsche once wrote, "Man is something that must be overcome." He wasn't talking about conquering the world. He was talking about conquering the self that keeps replaying the same loops. The version of you still living inside yesterday's assumptions. Because until you rise above that version, you'll keep attracting the same tests in different disguises. The same disappointment wearing new clothes. Luck has less to do with chance, and more to do with consciousness. Because the truth is, life isn't repeating itself to hurt you. It's repeating itself to show you where you're still asleep. So if life keeps replaying the same scene, let's name the projector, the unconscious. Jung didn't treat it like mysticism. Think of it as an operating system built from everything you absorbed but never fully processed. Memories, body-felt reactions, beliefs you inherited without choosing. It runs quietly, then loads expectations before you even enter the room. We rarely perceive reality raw. We perceive it through prior experience. That's why two people can live the same moment and walk away with different stories. Here's how that OS shows up in everyday life, without you noticing. If conflict once meant danger, you smooth every disagreement and call it being easygoing, even when it costs you truth. If money used to feel scarce, you undersell your work, pass on fair raises, or choose the safe option that keeps you small. If attention was earned only by achievement, you burn out chasing gold stars, then wonder why rest feels guilty. If success once drew jealousy, you dim your work right before it shines, so you can avoid old backlash. None of this is about wanting pain. It's your system favoring the recognizable over the unknown. Modern research backs the autopilot. John Bargh's work on automaticity shows much of what we decide, who we trust, what we reach for, happens pre-consciously. The narrating mind often explains choices after the fact. In plain terms, Your story talks like a driver, but much of the steering was already done. And the unconscious has one job: protection, not satisfaction. If an old pattern ever kept you safe, your system keeps preferring it, even when it's outdated. To a protective brain, repetition feels safer than change. That's why the same themes keep circling you. Not because you're cursed, but because an old program is still running. The good news? Programs can be seen and edited. You're not unlucky. You're running default settings. Naming the program is the first lever you can pull. Step 2 is opening the hidden folder inside it. What Jung called the shadow. The traits and feelings you pushed out of sight to stay acceptable. Anger you labeled dangerous. Neediness you called weak. Pride you renamed arrogance. The mind doesn't delete what it hides, it redirects it. That's why the shadow rarely walks through the front door. It steers from the side. You forget to send the application you wanted most, and call it bad timing. You crack a joke that undercuts you right when someone praises your work. You pick a small fight the night before things might get truly close. Your body throws a headache the morning you promised yourself you'd finally speak. You over-prepare past the deadline, so the opportunity quietly expires. From the outside, it looks like misfortune. From the inside, it's an unlived part of you pulling the brake so you don't have to feel what you've outlawed. Visibility, desire, power, dependence, whatever once felt risky. Schopenhauer wrote, "A man can do what he wills, but he cannot will what he wills." Until you meet the source of your will, you're not choosing your life, you're complying with it. And here's the trap. The shadow convinces you that playing small equals staying safe, not because it loves suffering, but because it remembers the cost of being too much, too honest, too bright. So it reroutes you into losses you can tolerate, rather than wins you don't yet know how to hold. You can't out-argue a shadow you won't acknowledge. What you disown owns the steering. What you name loses leverage. Integration isn't about fixing a flawed part. It's about reclaiming energy you've been using to keep that part underground. And if you don't reclaim it, the pattern doesn't punish, it repeats. Different setting, same undertow, which is exactly what we'll see next, when the same lesson starts returning in new disguises. It's easy to think you've failed, but what's really happening is that awareness has reached its limit, and life is asking for embodiment. You can understand the shadow in theory, but understanding doesn't rewrite reflex. So the psyche brings the test again, not to punish you, but to help the insight become instinct. Ancient philosophy and modern psychology describe the same law in different tongues. Buddhism calls it karma, not cosmic justice, but the unfinished movement of cause and effect. Freud called it repetition compulsion, the mind's pull to restage an old scene until the ending changes. It's like the soul rehearsing one act until it finally lands the truth. That's why similar people, places, and triggers keep appearing. Not to trap you, but to offer you a cleaner line to speak this time. Neuroscience adds another lens. When trauma freezes, the body equates intensity with aliveness. So you chase emotional voltage, the argument, the urgency, the chaos, mistaking adrenaline for meaning. Your nervous system keeps returning to the frequency where it first learned what being alive felt like. But repetition isn't cruelty, it's calibration. Each loop hands you a slightly clearer mirror. The pain lessens only when the lesson lands in behavior, not just belief. So instead of asking, why again, the deeper question becomes, what still wants to be lived differently? Because cycles don't stop when they stop hurting. They stop when they've been integrated. And the moment you meet the echo with full presence instead of avoidance, it quiets. The universe, or perhaps your own psyche, doesn't punish. It evolves you by echo. But even evolution has a breaking point, a moment when echo turns into earthquake, when the same lessons no longer circle gently but crash straight through your life, clearing everything that refuses to grow. You can feel it before it happens. The familiar situations that once fit like armor begin to feel like cages. Conversations drain you faster. Plans you used to chase lose color. You can't pretend you don't see the cost of staying the same. That tension isn't failure, it's pressure. The same force that turns coal into diamond. Jung called this the night sea journey. the descent where your old structures dissolve so something authentic can surface. It's the psyche saying, no more rehearsing, live it for real. And that collapse, though terrifying, is intelligence. Life stops letting you outsource awareness. The signals get louder until you finally respond from truth, not habit. You may lose roles, routines, even people, but what's actually dying is the false stability built on suppression. Viktor Frankl captured it simply. When we are no longer able to change a situation, we are challenged to change ourselves. This is that challenge, the shift from managing pain to meeting it. It's not the world turning on you. It's reality aligning with your next level of honesty. When the pattern cracks, what enters through those fractures isn't luck, it's clarity. And clarity, once seen, can't be unseen. That's where transformation begins. Not in escape, but in the quiet courage to let what's false fall apart, so something true can finally take its place. And when the false falls away, the question becomes simple. What do you do with the space that's left? Answer: you fill it with attention you can use, not analysis. Attention, the kind you can deploy in real time. Here's how awakening looks when it's lived, not just understood. Name it to tame it. Put a short label on the surge. Fear, defend, perform. A named state is a noticed state. Noticed states lose leverage. The 90-second rule. Strong emotions spike and settle in about a minute and a half if you don't feed them stories. Breathe. Let the wave pass before you act. If-then handles. Preload a plan. If I feel myself shrinking in a meeting, then I'll ask one clarifying question. Small, specific, repeatable. Opposite action. Behavior first. If the old reflex is to withdraw, take one step forward. Send the email, ask for time, hold eye contact for 3 more seconds. Behavior trains belief. Journaling as a mirror, not a memoir. 2 lines, daily. What pulled me today? What did I choose instead? Track reps, not paragraphs. Therapy or a trusted witness. One place where you tell the unvarnished version. Secrecy keeps patterns alive. Being seen helps them dissolve. Neuroscience backs the mechanics. Each time you interrupt an auto loop, you give the prefrontal cortex another rep, and the old circuitry one less. It's not dramatic, it's practice. Tiny votes for a different future. What changes first isn't your life, it's your latency, the gap between trigger and choice. That gap becomes your workshop. You start catching the moment your body reaches for the old script, and you gently choose a truer line. Over time, triggers turn into tells, tells turn into teachers, and the old need to control everything, it gets replaced by something sturdier. Capacity. This isn't perfection, it's presence you can rely on, especially when the next test arrives. And it will. Only now, you meet it awake. And then something subtle begins to shift. You start noticing patterns again, but this time, they don't trap you. They guide you. The right book lands in your hands at the right moment. You overhear a sentence that answers a question you never said aloud. You meet someone who reflects the very insight you've just begun to understand. It feels like luck, but it's not luck at all. It's synchronicity. Carl Jung used that word to describe meaningful coincidences. Moments when the inner world and the outer world suddenly move in rhythm. He believed these alignments aren't magic. They're mirrors. When your unconscious stops fighting your conscious mind, the two begin to cooperate. Life doesn't start obeying you, it starts reflecting you. Neuroscience offers a modern explanation. The reticular activating system, the brain's internal filter, tunes your attention to what you value most. Before awareness, it filtered for threat and survival. But once consciousness grows, that same filter begins to seek meaning instead of danger. You start spotting opportunities instead of obstacles. Synchronicity, in that sense, is awareness meeting readiness. You finally notice what was always there, because now you're able to see it. This is what Marcus Aurelius meant when he wrote, "The obstacle is the way." What once looked like bad luck begins to feel like design. You realize the universe wasn't conspiring against you. It was training your perception. Every detour was preparation. Every loss was direction. And suddenly, life feels coherent. You move with it, not against it. Not because you've gained control, but because you've stopped resisting the current. You've learned to read the signals, not as punishments, but as participation in something larger than thought. This is when real luck begins to change shape. It stops being something that happens to you. It becomes something that happens through you. When life starts happening through you, something even quieter and more powerful arrives. Alignment. Not the movie version with fireworks. More like a compass finally pointing north and staying there, even when the weather turns. You're still walking the same streets, dealing with the same emails, paying the same bills, but the friction drops. The inner argument stops. Your energy isn't leaking into pretending, defending, or decoding. It's available. What is alignment, really? It's when your choices, your values, and your actions line up. No hidden crosstalk. You don't say yes and mean no. You don't promise yourself something and then ghost yourself. Your outer life begins to match your inner truth. That's all. And that's everything. Here's how it looks in real time. Clarity over certainty. You don't always know the outcome, but you know why you're taking a step. That why steadies your legs more than perfect conditions ever did. Fewer bargains with yourself. You stop trading tiny pieces of your integrity for quick comfort. You'd rather disappoint someone else for a moment than abandon yourself for a month. Clean no's, clean yeses. You don't over-explain. A no is a full sentence that leaves dignity on both sides. A yes is chosen, not squeezed out by pressure. Energy that renews. Even hard work doesn't drain you in the same way. You're tired and content, not tired and hollow. Quicker repairs. When you slip, because you're human, you notice fast, course correct faster, and move on without a dozen self-attacks. Philosophically, this is where Nietzsche's amor fati lives. Love your fate. Not tolerate it, not endure it. Love it. Not because every event is pleasant, but because every event can be used. Alignment doesn't ask life to change temperament. It asks you to bring a unified self to whatever arrives. Here's the paradox most people miss. Alignment isn't a feeling you chase. It's a practice you keep. Feelings follow later. Think of it like tuning an instrument. You don't argue with the note, you turn the peg. In daily life, the pegs are small and concrete. Micro-honesty. Tell the truth in sentences as small as, I need a minute, I don't know, and that doesn't work for me. Micro-honesty, repeated, builds macro trust, with others and with yourself. Keep tiny promises to yourself. 5 minutes of the thing you say matters. Writing, stretching, calling the person you love. Not for performance, for proof. Each kept promise is a vote for the life you're building. Choose friction on purpose. One deliberate discomfort a day. Asking a direct question. Showing your work before it's perfect. Letting silence do its job. Reminds your nervous system that safety and truth can coexist. Make meaning. Don't wait for it. Instead of asking, what does this coincidence mean about destiny? Ask, what meaning can I make with it? Alignment is creative, not passive. Close loops. Finish the conversation. Send the reply. Apologize when you've actually harmed, and stop apologizing when you haven't. Open loops drain alignment. Closed loops return attention. You'll notice something as you do this. Your standards rise without your heart hardening. You become kinder and clearer at the same time. You're not available for chaos for sport anymore, but you're more patient with ordinary human mess. You separate noise from signal faster. You don't cling to every opinion. You let people be who they are and let yourself be who you are too. And luck? It changes shape again. Good luck stops looking like jackpots and starts looking like fit. Right people, right timing, right places to grow. Not perfect, just true. You'll find yourself in rooms you used to force your way into. Only now you're invited because you're carrying something real, not a costume that needs constant maintenance. Doors don't just open. The right doors stay open long enough for you to walk through them without sprinting past yourself. Does pain disappear? Alignment doesn't erase weather. It gives you the gear. Grief still visits. Plans still pivot. But even in rough seasons, you don't abandon the path to chase a shortcut that cost your center. You can hold sadness without collapsing into, this always happens to me. You can hold joy without clutching it into fear of loss. You move, less like a pinball, more like a river. If you want a simple test, try this. After a decision, do you feel lighter or smaller? Lighter doesn't mean easier, it means honest. Smaller means you made yourself less to make the moment quiet. Does your future self thank you? Not for heroics, for consistency. Alignment compounds. The future is built out of what you repeat, not what you occasionally perform. Over time, you'll notice a quieter confidence. Not swagger, steadiness. You don't need to announce your growth to be believed. It shows up in how you listen, how you choose, how you recover. People may call it maturity or poise. Call it what it is, integration. Your conscious and unconscious aren't pulling against each other anymore. They're on the same team. And that's the real luck no one can hand you or take away. A life that feels internally coherent. The world can call it coincidence, providence, flow. Use your word. What matters is that you're not waiting for a cosmic green light to live as yourself. You become the green light. So when the next bend in the road arrives, and it will, you won't ask, will I get lucky? You'll ask, how do I meet this in alignment? And that question, asked sincerely, turns almost any outcome into forward motion. Love your fate enough to work with it. Not because every page is pretty, but because every page belongs to the same book you're finally willing to write. You were never unlucky. You were unawake. Every setback wasn't punishment. It was direction. Every ending was an invitation to see what was real beneath the illusion of control. Fate wasn't against you. It was trying to show you who you are. Because the moment you stop calling it bad luck, you start seeing it for what it really was. Guidance. So before you call yourself unlucky again, pause and ask, what part of me is this moment trying to reveal? Share your reflection below. Your story might be the mirror someone else needs. And if this spoke to you, subscribe and stay connected, because here, awakening is the real luck.